Hey everyone, my name's Satara. One of the co-founders of Natural Pregnancy and Birth, and really excited about this segment today because Tori and I are going to be talking about relactation. So, Tori, my first question for you is a lot of women they stop breastfeeding for a lot of different reasons. What was your reason?
So my baby just struggled a lot about, I'd say from like 4 weeks on. Prior to 4 weeks, I exclusively breastfed. And it was going well for us. And then we kind of went through this period where every time that I fed him, he cried afterwards, cried and cried and cried, like he was just so uncomfortable. And we tried different dietary changes. I went dairy free, and then I went dairy and soy free. And the next step was just like cutting everything out and seeing if we could find the allergen. And it was just really difficult for me emotionally because breastfeeding is such an intimate thing that you're doing. And to have him cry every time after I fed him, I found just really hard on me emotionally because it felt like I was the one giving him the pain. And I knew in my head that that wasn't what it was. It was something about the milk, or it was something about my letdown, or it was something, I knew that there was more to it, but it was really hard to not feel like that. And I think it was starting to create this like disconnect between me and my baby. I wasn't really enjoying motherhood. I wasn't, enjoying it like I thought that I would. I wasn't enjoying my baby. And so we tried, some dietary things over the course of about a month. And then we tried formula. And initially, formula seemed to make a big difference for him, and cured some of his fussiness. And he was like all broke out in a rash at that point. And it kind of seemed to make that better. So about when he was between 7 and 8 weeks, we slowly made the switch over to exclusively formula feeding. So that was kind of how our breastfeeding journey ended.
And I think that a lot of what you mentioned, me included, like I went into breastfeeding expecting one thing and then it turns out like completely different. And like you said, that can really have an impact on that connection between mother and baby. So it definitely sounds like in that moment you did what you thought was best for yourself, and for your baby. When did you decide to breastfeed again? And or try to get that started again, and why?
Well, like I said, we initially had success with the formula that we were trying. He seemed to kind of, his skin cleared up, he got less fussy. And then that lasted 2 or 3 weeks. And it seemed like then the problems came back. So we switched to a hyperallergenic formula that helped for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then we seemed to go back downhill again. It was just like this constant struggle that we couldn't figure out what to do for him. And so when he was on like the highest level of hyperallergenic formula that he could be on, and he was still fussy, I had this thought that if he was just a fussy baby, if it was something that wasn't dietary, or if he needed to be on medication and it wasn't dietary, I would prefer nutritionally that he was on breast milk instead of on formula. And that was just my preference, that if I was able to give that to him, that that's something that I wanted to be able to give to him. And so when he was, he would have been like 3.5 months, I decided to see if I could relactate. And then for his kind of gut issues, we did decide to try acid reflux medication. And that is the thing that ultimately made him a much more comfortable and happy baby. It wasn't anything dietary. He needed acid reflux medication. And so I decided when he was about 3.5 months old that I would start pumping again. And he wasn't keen on latching again because at that point he had been bottle fed for about 6 weeks is about all it had been, but he definitely had a bottle preference. And so I started pumping just to see if it would work. And I just did pumping for a while. We didn't try an SNS or anything because I think that I recognize still that like a big piece of why I decided to stop breastfeeding was the emotional part. And it was still hard emotionally for me to want to breastfeed him and him to not want to latch, not want to breastfeed. He wanted the bottle. And so I think there was a part of me that recognized that it might be exclusively pumping, and going into it, I was okay with that if that was what it was.
I thought it was interesting. You said shortly after you decided that nutritionally you would prefer for your baby to be on breast milk, you just kind of went into the relactation process. So I have a question about that. Did you Google it, or did you just know instinctively? Were you just like, I want to see what's going to happen?
No, I definitely did a lot of Googling because like I'm also somebody that really I want all the information before I make a decision. And I really want a timeline. I want you to tell me what's going to happen, how exactly it's going to play out. And unfortunately, that's just not really possible with relactation because everybody's body is different. So I did Google and I did find a lot of information, and I felt encouraged by the fact that a lot of the criteria that make you more likely to relactate were criteria that I met. So like I did have a full milk supply before I dried up. It had only been a little less than 2 months since I had dried up. My baby was still young, which is helpful. So I felt encouraged by those things. It still was scary in that there's a lot of range in how long it can take women to relactate, and it can be a very discouraging process if you're pumping, like 12 times a day and you're not getting to where you want to be. It can really take some women, it takes 2 weeks, and some women it takes 4 to 6 months to like truly get back to a full supply. And so I had a lot of information, and I had realistic expectations about how long it might take. And it really helped me going into it. I said that I wanted to give it a month. I wanted to give it a whole month of trying my best, trying all the things that I wanted to try to reestablish my milk supply. And if at a month I wasn't making a substantial enough amount of milk to feel like it was worth all the effort, then I would just be okay with him continuing to get formula. So I think setting that deadline for myself too was really helpful, and feeling like I could try it. And if it didn't work, this was when I was allowing myself to be done. But this was how long I was going to try to relactate.
How soon did you begin to see results? Like, I know you aimed for like a month. You're like, I'll give myself a month. But how soon after you began the process did you begin to see results that you wanted?
Well, I saw like in that first week even, I had like drops of milk, which I also joined like Facebook groups with other women that were talking about their relactation journeys, because it was really encouraging to know, like how long this woman was into it and what she was producing. Not that it's good to compare yourself to anybody else because it's such an individualized journey, but just to have some reference of normal and the range of normal. And I found from in that there were some women that weren't getting drops of milk even 2 and 3 weeks into it. And that is something that I had within the first week. I was producing a little bit. And something I did in the first, I think for the first 2 weeks, the milk that I did collect, I just let it collect in the pump parts. I didn't save it and feed it to him because I felt like it was more important for me to like see the progress of getting like this much more every day in the bottom. And like, I was pumping like half an ounce, or something for the whole 24-hour period. And so that's something that I did that I think really helped me because I was able to see the progress. And then when I hit pumping like maybe 2 or 3 ounces a day, I started saving it to give to him. But that was something that encouraged me to keep going, that I know not all women do, because to some women it's more important to save every drop, and that's just a personal preference. So about, I think like 10 days in, I was producing like maybe an ounce or 2 a day. And then once I hit that mark, every day that I pumped, I got almost an ounce more than the day before. And I think I established a full supply by 6 weeks, maybe. So, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I was looking up some information on, they call it like relactation requirements. And it said that women just need to have, well, you have to make time for it. You have to have patience, you have to have determination, and you have to have a cooperative baby. And so and actually another thing is like with my personal experience, my daughter's 4 now, but there was a period in time where she just completely stopped. And this was like for like 3 weeks or something like that. And, I didn't think that I was like producing or anything like that. So then I want to say a couple weeks later, she was just like, "Mommy, can I have a little bit of milk?" And I was just like, okay. And I gave in, and lo and behold, I had milk. So, and even now it's like, she'll be 5 in May, and I'm still producing milk. So it's just amazing, like what the body is capable of, like when you really put that work in. It'll really work with you. I know that you said like you pump, so it was mostly like supply and demand, but did you like do any supplementation like with herbs or anything like that, or was it just that exclusive pumping?
I didn't take any like herbal supplements or anything like that. I did eat a lot more oatmeal, and these are just things that I found online that were more just like dietary things that just add extra vitamins and electrolytes and things to your system. That, for sure, I don't know for sure if they made a difference for me, but I think that they did. So like I had oatmeal every day and tried to eat it like multiple ways. And then I did drink like body armors during the day, which is the coconut water in them. A lot of women thinks helps their milk supply and the electrolytes that are in body armors. And then I tried to be really conscious of eating more, because I definitely noticed a difference when I was breastfeeding, when I stopped breastfeeding, of like my appetite definitely going down when I was no longer producing milk. And so I wanted to be very conscious of like getting those extra calories so that my body did have the extra calories to be making milk. So that was just food in general, making sure that I was eating enough food and then drinking a lot of water, making sure I was really well hydrated was important too. And then I just pumped those first like 2 weeks. I pumped every 2 hours that I was awake. I did choose not to pump around the clock. Like I did not wake up in the middle of the night to pump. I would still sleep 6 hours at least at night, because again, I felt like it was more important that I was sleeping when he was sleeping, and my mental health was in a good place because I was fully rested. And that was just a personal decision for me too, that was like another one of my maybe stipulations on it, is that providing him breast milk was still not more important than me getting enough sleep at night and me being mentally healthy enough to be a good mom during the day because I'm well rested. That trumps the nutritional value of breast milk to me. And so I did still usually pump 8 to 10 to 12 times a day, because I was pumping every 2 hours while I was awake, and then right before I went to bed and right before I woke up. So those are all the things that I did.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And, like you said, every woman's journey is different. So while yours was mostly like just supply and demand, there may be women who are just, they need that extra support, like they'll need herbs or something like that. And I know that alfalfa and ginger, and I think it's milk thistle. Those are also like, help with milk production and stimulation and things like that. And another thing that I really like about this conversation of relactation is a lot of women, they don't know that they can relactate. A lot of women, and even those who have not gone through the process of pregnancy and delivery, who say they've adopted a child, there's the process of induced lactation, where you can, put baby to breast or do skin to skin and stimulate those hormones and begin to produce milk, as long as it's done consistently. So I just think this conversation is it's so needed, especially in a time, I don't know if you've realized, but there's a lot of articles that are out about how, mothers are looking for breast milk, or donor milk, but there's not as much to go around anymore. So this, conversation may be really helpful for women who don't know about relactation, or who want a little bit more education on it, or those who, they stop breastfeeding for whatever reason, but then now they're doing formula, but they, the baby may be having like issues with the gut, and maybe they want to switch back, but they don't know. So this is just a well-needed conversation. I don't think that it's talked about enough. So it's great that you have experience in this and that you're able to share it with our viewers. And so thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that it's not an easy journey. And I do think that in some ways I had it easier for sure. And that, I think my body still had a lot of the hormones that it needed to produce milk. Like that's a key thing, that just the length of time between when I dried up and when I decided to relactate was a huge factor in how easily it came back to me, even though it was a lot of work. I recognize that a lot of women, they put a lot more work and time and dedication into it. And the other factor for me too is that my baby only takes like the lower end of the ounces that a baby needs in a day. So like the average baby needs 24 to 32 ounces of milk per day, and my baby falls in that 24 mark. So for me to say too that like I established a full supply, my full supply would not feed every baby. So there's factors like that too, that like I don't know that I could have got all the way back up to a supply of producing 32 ounces, because I don't think I ever did, and so I think that it's really good to manage your expectations going in and being okay if you don't get to that full supply mark, because there's still a lot of nutritional value in one bottle of breast milk a day, or in being able to feed 2 or 3 times but not the full 5 or 6. And so I'm really happy that I can share, but I want to be really transparent about the fact that it can look so different for so many women, and whatever you're able to provide to your baby is amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Tori. And just great job with your determination and patience with that process. While you may have it a little bit easier than other mothers, you still put a lot of work in, and that should definitely be recognized. So thank you so much for sharing in your experience. And I hope that this helps other mothers who may be learning about this process or are currently going through it. If anyone who's viewing has experience with the process of relactation or induced lactation, please feel free to share in the comments. And of course, visit our website and subscribe to our email newsletter. But thanks again, Tori. I'm so glad that we had this talk and that we were able to share with our viewers, and we'll see you again next time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.